The building of the Halverson family's first homestead in eastern Washington Territory, beginning in the late summer of 1876. This moment marks not only the beginning of their physical home, but also the turning point where hope, hardship, and quiet tension began to braid together. The land they chose lay on a gentle slope tucked between two low ridge lines, where the wind softened slightly and the soil, though rocky, held promise. To the east was a narrow stream that trickled cold and clear through a scatter of willows. A stand of pines bordered the western edge, casting long shadows across the field in the late afternoon. The grasses here grew tall and sun bleached, seeded with wildflowers and sage. Coyotes yipped at night, and hawks circled during the day. There was no road, no neighbor, no sign that anyone had ever lived here before. To Ingrid, it felt like standing at the edge of a world that hadn't been named yet. That terrified her and thrilled her. The first days, setting the foundation. Eric began building the next morning. The light was just beginning to stretch across the land when he rose. He set some coffee to boil over the campfire and took out his axe. His hands were calloused and weather-worn, shaped by years of farming in Minnesota and labor back in Norway. But this was different. This was his land. There was a ferocity in his swing, a kind of quiet reverence. He started with trees, pines, from the western edge of the clearing. He felled them carefully, stripped the limbs, and cut them into rough logs. He didn't have horses to haul them, so he used a crude drag he built from two branches and a rope, pulling them one by one towards the site he'd marked with a circle of stones. Ingrid kept the children nearby, beneath a canvas stretched between the wagon and two poles. Elise picked wildflowers and brought them to her mother. Henrik toddled around, fascinated by ants and beetles. Ingrid watched Eric from a distance, her hands resting on her stomach, her fourth child already heavy inside her. She didn't speak much that first week. She was so tired that it frightened her. Laying the walls. By the end of the first week, Eric had cleared enough wood to begin the walls of their cabin. He built the structure by stacking the logs horizontally, notched at the corners. He had learned this method from another settler in Minnesota. And though his hands ached and his knees were bruised, there was something meditative about the work. He worked from sunup to sundown. When he paused, he drank water straight from the creek, wiping his mouth with the back of his wrist. His shirt soaked through with sweat. Ingrid helped where she could, hauling small stones for the hearth, heating water, or mending torn sleeves. But her strength waned. By evening, her ankles were swollen, her back was cramped, and her head buzzed from the weight of the sun and the silence. At night, the wolves howled. Elise cried and clung to her. Ingrid sang soft lullabies in Norwegian until the girl drifted off. But sometimes she wept quietly, her face hidden in her blanket, the loneliness pressing in like a second skin. The roof and the hearth. By early September, the walls were chest high. Eric used smaller saplings to form roof beams, laid them across the top, and covered the gaps with branches, grass, and sod. It was primitive, but better than canvas. He built the door from old wagon boards, hinged with leather straps. For a window, he left one opening facing east, where the sun would come in. No glass, just a shutter that could be latched shut. The hearth was the most important piece. Stones stacked in a square, bound with thick mud. Smoke pipe rising through the roof. He'd carved a simple wooden mantle. Ingrid placed the family Bible on it the day the fire was lit. That night they had hot food again. Boiled potatoes and salt pork. It was the first time she had smiled in weeks. The inside of the cabin was no more than 15 feet by 20. Dirt floor, log walls sealed with moss and clay. One corner for the bed, just blankets on straw at first, another for storage. The hearth, of course, was the heart of it. Eric carved a bench from a felled pine. He built a crude table and 2 stools. They hung a lantern from the rafter, though oil was scarce. Ingrid hung strips of cloth along the rafters to keep down the dust. She laid out her few treasures: a silver thimble, a comb from her mother, and a tiny cross carved from driftwood. Here, in this bare-boned cabin, she tried to make something home-like in a place that still felt more like wilderness than promise. Settling in. They moved in before the first frost. Nights were already dipping below freezing. The children shared a straw mattress on the floor. Ingrid and Eric slept on the other side, their bodies curled together for warmth. Ingrid went into labor 2 weeks later. Mary was born on that dirt floor near the fire, with only Eric's trembling hands and Elisa's wide eyes bearing witness. But that's another story.